So Irene, thank you for being here today. A lot of your journalism has an environmental lens, whether you're writing about seed diversity, agriculture, or the intersection of art and ecology. I love that aspect of your work, and I'm curious, what drew you to environmental writing?
This is such a good question because I have always been a writer. Like, this is something that when I was very young, I was just kind of like, I'm going to be a writer, and I always wrote. It always meant a lot to me to write stories. And I grew up in upstate New York, and I spent a lot of time outside. I am an only child, so I spent a lot of time alone outside. I learned a lot while I was up there about the environment and being in the woods. And it took me a really long time to find the intersection between my writing and my innate love and connection with the natural world that I grew up with. It just kind of came to me one day where I was just like, I've been doing this whole time, and I've always been in love with the natural environment, and how do I marry the two?
Blending things, I guess, blending subjects and genres is something that you do really well, and it's present across a lot of your work and your career as a writer. You've written for Hyperallergic, The Brooklyn Rail, The Rumpus, Yes Magazine, and more. How do you approach writing across different genres of journalism and creative writing, like book reviews, art criticism, environmental reporting? Do those parts of your practice communicate?
I am, at my core, I believe, a storyteller, and I love finding the stories, finding the ways that things kind of connect. My first love of writing came into writing fairy tales and fairy stories and stuff. And so, though I have done a lot of studying, this is going to sound weird, but it's going to come together. So finding these arcs and archetypes and these storylines that we all have has always been at the core. So for me, it doesn't really even feel like blending. It feels like, what is the story here? And I'm being drawn to this thing because I love it. And is it coming out as criticism, or is it coming out as harder journalism, or is it coming out as a myth? Whatever that is, I kind of just go by instinct, I guess.
We share an interest in myth and in speculative work, especially historically rooted, kind of fabular speculative work. You have this ongoing project, What's That Plant?, which combines research and myth-making. How did that project come about, and what excites you most about it?
That project feels like a part of my soul. When I came upon it, it kind of was I feel like I'm home now, and any other kind of writing is going to be coming out of that research practice, that I do from there. Not that everything is always going to look like What's That Plant, but it has a soul for me. Mm-hmm. And like I said, that was where my kind of environmental love mixed with my writing practice. I've been teaching for a long time, and over COVID, I worked alongside this other teacher with this family, and one day she went with a student to the New York Botanical Garden, and she talked to me kind of in passing. She was like, Irene, we were walking through the garden and we were thinking, what's that plant? Irene would know what that plant was. And I thought to myself, wow, this is something that's how What's That Plant came to be. That's how, it just kind of clicked for me. And in terms of the myth, I feel very strongly that I'm very interested in kind of the science of why for these plants, of what's the ecosystem, what plants are they related to, so that we can learn more about them, because I feel this knowledge of the diversity of our world, and specifically the intelligence and sentience of plants, is so important for everybody to know. But also, my attempt to make the myths is a way to go beyond the science and have a personal relationship with the research practice. So I can only write the myth after I've done all of the research. And it's my way of being with the plant. And even if I can't physically be with it, it's its essence is there.
Totally. Yeah, articulating myth as a way to build a personal relationship with the natural world or with a particular species or experience is, I think that's kind of what draws me to myth making too. What's a myth or folktale that has deeply influenced your writing?
This is going to sound really kind of basic, but this is the story that opened the door for me for myth and for folktale. It was Little Red Riding Hood, because it's a story that is so old. There's so many versions of it that it feels like everybody has it. And that's one thing that I love about myth, is that we can embody stories, right? Mm-hmm. So like, if we know a story well enough, it can become us. I mean, there's so many things about this story. One thing that I do in my practice also is I like reading all the different versions of the stories and like researching them, because I do think there is sometimes wisdom in them from like a long time ago. Like, for example, it's like what in Little Red Riding Hood has been lost over the years, and like when we retell it, we can like find things that have been lost.
There's so many like versions of these old stories, and I love to see what different cultures and time periods make of them, and what they leave out. It is really interesting.
Yeah.
So your fiction is really influenced by magical realism, science fiction, and folklore, as we've said. What draws you to these genres in particular?
Well, I've talked a little bit about folklore. Science fiction is really interesting to me. I'm always interested in like the why of things. Science fiction kind of goes into, how does this world work? It asks questions about what is technology, what is society, how do we tell stories, and how do we experience our reality? Science fiction really does that in a way that imagines how we could be or how we might be. It's this speculative aspect. I think that that's one of the greatest powers of writing, is that we can imagine worlds that can be, and the way and how can we kind of get to those places.
Your perceptiveness around like the value of writing and helping us imagine how the world could be is really manifest in your kind of activist work as well, and your organizing work. You organize with the Brooklyn Women's Writing Group, which supports over 3,000 writers in our community. What has it been like to help build such a large and engaged writing group?
It's been a huge honor. I am deeply honored every day that I get to meet with those writers. And the Brooklyn Women's Writing Group, I've been organizing and working with them since 2018. It's always kind of new people coming in, or sometimes we'll have people who have been there every session for the last 3 years or something. There's something about writing in community, and it's more than just trying to like be accountable to each other of like, I want to finish this book and like get it out there. That has happened, in the writing group. There have been people who have come in and finished novels and gotten them published, but it's also more than that, because people also come in with personal issues and they'll talk about them, and we kind of figure out together what it means to be creative and be writers. Yeah, I always leave those groups feeling just such warmth and hope in my heart for people and for their passion, like for their work, it's so beautiful.
Definitely. So Wild Garlic is the literary magazine that you co-founded.
Yes.
I'd love to ask about what kind of work you look for when you're editing that publication.
Gosh, we started that in 2021, and Wild Garlic is another plant reference and very, on brand, I suppose, for me. Though I was not the only one to choose the name Wild Garlic. It was a group effort. We wanted to, the kind of mission statement is to find prose that breaks concrete. And because wild garlic is pretty invasive, I think, and it is pretty aggressive, and it will find itself in between concrete, and it will kind of grow in between places and places that are not very hospitable. A lot of our writers they're not professional writers in the Brooklyn Women's Writing Group, and we want to encourage people to write even if they don't have a lot of time or space. They write, when they have time, like Wild Garlic. They write about their lives. So we're looking for writing from people,
Totally. Yeah. I mean, at this point, you've worked with so many writers to help them reach agents, self-publish, or refine their work. What are the most common challenges that writers bring to you?
I feel like the biggest challenges that I hear are mostly self-inflicted, of like working with ourselves to find out what success means to us, or finding what does discipline mean for us? What does it mean to wake up and to like write? A lot of the writers that I work with, they can find, not that they like will find an agent, or not that they like definitely will get published, though they might. But I think the biggest thing is just defining what that success means to you and committing to it. But what does that commitment look like to you? The most difficult thing is us working with ourselves, because it's all possible. We can get agents. People do it all the time. How do we work with ourselves?
Yeah, and why are you writing? I think the way that you discuss the teaching of writing is really interestingly nuanced and intuitive, because it's based in real experience. And I want to ask, how do you approach teaching writing in a way that makes it feel like an intuitive, creative, and grounded in real life process, rather than just an academic or theoretical exercise?
Well, I was never very academic. I liked going to school. I went to grad school. I have my master's. I like school, but I don't feel like I'm an academic writer. I fell in love with writing with my 7th grade teacher, and she taught us what free writing was. And we would just write for a certain amount of time every class. That allowed me to be able to access my voice as a writer, and even when I felt like I didn't have ideas, it was like I accessed something, I was able to find it. And so I like to work with writers in a more kind of exploratory way of, there might be a lot of free writing, there might be a lot of exploration that defines how the work is being made. I love research too. I do a lot of most of my days are made up of researching plants, for example. But that when we actually put pen to paper or hands to keyboard, it's about accessing that freedom. It's about finding freedom. Yeah.